Hello and welcome everyone. I have got game 2 here of a best of 3. It is between two awesome players. It's from the ESET UK Masters. Never been cast before, so this is a first right here on my YouTube channel. So let's get straight to the point, introduce these two, and then we can do a quick little recap of game 1. Spawning in the bottom left position of Daybreak, we have got the blue Zerg from Team Liquid. It's Snute. And his opponent up in the top right, the red Protoss, currently on Navi, it is BabyKnight. So, game 1, let's talk a little bit about that, because it was spectacular, it was amazing, it was brilliant, I loved it. We saw some different strategies, and that's always fun. And if you haven't watched it, then I suggest you hit the pause button on this video, open a new tab with my channel on it, find game 1 and give it a watch. And that is fair warning, because now I'm going to tell you everything that happened and why it was cool. So, firstly, we saw BabyKnight go for a gateway opening, put on a little bit of pressure, managed to knock off 2 queens. Really big because it hurt Snute's production, but not that much because Snute did make 3 queens early on. Then, a little bit of a counter push because of that gateway expand. Snute was like, roaches, good unit, let's kill him. Unfortunately, didn't do too well, did very little damage, and that was really the beginning of the end, for my opinion, in Snute, because he delayed his third by going for that, he lowered his drone count, and because it did very little damage, didn't really achieve anything for him. Then, it was all about Snute's swarm hosts, after a nice little gateway push with a void ray, coming in to the third, and the third base of Snute was knocked out by that force. BabyKnight mass recalled, leaving Snute no option other than to double expand and put on some pain. The swarm hosts were a great choice because it meant that he could be very cost effective, contain his opponent and look good for it. But unfortunately, BabyKnight just pumped too many Colossi too quickly off 2 robotic facilities, responding very well, not overcommitting, not rushing it, but just making sure that he took his time. Once he knocked out the swarm host, then it was pretty much GG for Snute. He didn't have any other spoiling army, his upgrades were way behind, and just generally BabyKnight was looking solid. This game though, however, BabyKnight is going for a completely different opening. A Nexus first, then a Forge. The Overlord scouted all though, completely aware. That means that Snute can take his third base relatively quickly, and that is precisely what he should do. He wants to get it down roughly at about the 4 minutes 20 mark. Earlier the better though after a Nexus first, because you've got to stay ahead economically, and you know that with a Nexus first there's no risk of a cannon rush coming down super soon, so you can skip those initial Zerglings. But Snute, he's just not happy, he wants to kill this probe. 2's fine, and therefore he's going to get that dead, certainly, and really means that there's no risk to him in the slightest. The first queen just popping out. Now that inject going to be oh so important. We've got the gateway also coming for BabyKnight, as well as 2 additional gases. The drone coming to take his third. This third base for Snute should hit at about 4 minutes and 7 seconds. There we go, perfect. So, yep, this is good timings from both of these players. Probably going to be a relatively passive early game though. So, let me remind you, for those of you who don't know or don't visit my channel frequently, I get games up daily, so you should hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of them. They're always cool, they're always awesome games, and yeah, lots of StarCraft. Pylon goes down, gets knocked out though, luckily cancelled though before I was killed. The probe goes down, so good work by these 2 Zerglings, definitely paying for themselves. And now Snute is just going for the mass dronathon, and droning it up like a beast just means that the swarm is going to have the income it needs to really flood with units later on. But that tech path, well, to be honest, the tech path that Snute chooses is really going to depend on what happens after this cyber core completes. BabyKnight, he's got different options. I've seen my favourite build on this map, I must say, is getting a Mothership core out with enough energy for a mass recall and Blink Stalkers. Bring the Blink Stalkers in here, herp derp around with damage. It's really hard for a Zerg to push this way in without taking a lot of fire. And if they want to go for the surround, they've got just such a long way to go. And even if they do manage to get a contain and a surround on the Protoss force, guess what? Mass recall, boom, you're back at your natural, no damage done. Worst case scenario, you force a mass recall. Best case scenario, you knock out a hatchery. Either way, you're going to be happy as a Protoss player. And even if you don't deal any damage to that hatchery, just the sheer number of units you force from a Zerg player is going to be huge. Hurting their drone cannon is always nice, but we'll wait to see what BabyKnight has in store for us, because he's got the Mothership core down already. Now it's just waiting to find out what's going to be following this up. The Overlord is at the back of the base, and the reason you've got to be careful about placing an Overlord here is because, as we can see, the Mothership core will come over, will grant vision of the high ground for a sentry or a stalker or whatever to knock it out. So this is really smart by Snute, putting it back just somewhere where it's less likely to get spotted. But BabyKnight Not going to be going for any tech. Literally one gate, one cyber core, and then a third base. This puts pressure on Snute. He's got to either put on some pain, and that would ultimately be a good situation for him to kind of knock this out with so few units down. But if he doesn't scout it in time, he's got to take a fourth, either the fourth up here or the central fourth base. Either are good for him, but currently he's just droning. Needs to get about another 15 drones before he's saturated anyway, and then he probably will start pumping units. His lair getting started now, his Rotron also getting started. These Zerglings ideally need to spot that this third base is down. If they see the probe, it should be a good giveaway, and they do manage to spot it. That means Snute is completely scouted this out, even with the Overlord as well, just confirming it. Just says that, hey, he's got 3 bases, I've got to take a fourth, or I've got to come and kill him. And judging by the fact that the fourth base is already queued up, it looks like Snute wants to go macro heavy. And this macro heavy is really his only option because the Rotron's so late. And with the double evolution chamber, he's really pinning everything on the late game. Currently though, BabyKnight is ahead in upgrades, not chrono boosting it quite yet. A second pylon coming down here just to make sure everything's looking nice and safe and secure. No sign of any tech, just 4 additional gateways coming down at the third. This is just making a lovely wall off around this cannon, so any Zergling run-bys can't be too effective, have to go the long way through. There's also the sentries ready for some force fields. Really piecing it all together, the double expansion actually coming down here from Snute, so he desperately wants to stay 2 bases up on his opponent, making sure his economy can absolutely whitewash it, getting down the Spire as well, but that does get scouted as well as the double evolution chambers by the hallucinated Phoenix, and that just means that BabyKnight getting a good read on what Snute is doing as well. So, let's recap what we've seen so far. Both players have just been super economically played. We've got the double upgrades on the way out for Snute. He's teching towards Spire Tech. Could be going for Mutalisk, which would be really effective when you know your opponent has played so economically greedy. But, as we can see from BabyKnight, perhaps possibly, or potentially reading into that, by getting down a Stargate, if he gets some Phoenix out, that would deter this Spire play, which has been scouted, and Mutas would have to be very cautious or committed to incredibly heavily to be able to deal with the Phoenix. And if Phoenix come out, then always you're going to be concerned that what if they are just macroed well, which BabyKnight will be able to do. Snute has to be cautious. He could just lose all of them and not deal enough damage, but it looks like Snute currently just running around with a lot of speedlings. He's just also trying to deal with these hallucinated Phoenix that are scouting everything. I believe the only thing that hasn't been spotted by BabyKnight so far is this top base. So if he finds that, that would be great. But currently speedlings coming over this third, potentially in a bit of trouble, but a lot of sentries there with quite a large amount of energy banked up. Force fields would be able to go down, and there is a mothership core somewhere on the field ready to basically chuck down that photon overcharge and get the Nexus cannon going. Blink getting research, +1 flyer attack already on its way down. We've got Phoenix in production. The first one is already out. Don't want to reveal the Phoenix though at this stage, and the second Stargate also coming out now as well. So the reason you don't want to reveal the Phoenix is because if you show them too soon, you may stop Snute committing to this Muta play, and if you stop the Mutas, then the Phoenix are really not going to be able to do too much. But if you allow the Mutas to come out, and you're already getting a good number of Phoenix out with +1 air weapons, and the Flea Beacon ready for the range upgrade, then guess what? You can shut it down hard and waste a lot of resources from the Zerg. So this is really solid play out of BabyKnight at the moment. And Snute, he's got to identify what's going on, otherwise he could run into some problems. And the one thing I've got to credit BabyKnight for is just how effectively he uses these hallucinated Phoenix. Just gets so much information about everything that's going on. The Mutas looking to come and do some aggression, but as you can see, already 4 Phoenix out, 2 being produced at a time, chrono boosted as well. That means the Phoenix count is going to be huge. There's cannons everywhere as well. 5 Phoenix against 10 Mutas with 2 cannons. That's good times. The range upgrade also getting researched and chrono boosted out, so these Mutalists do have to be very cautious indeed. And the Phoenix even just coming straight over to try and trap these off. A little bit of micro there, just making sure that not too much is done, but already we see just how much damage is getting done to these Mutalists. So many getting taken out. These Phoenix shutting it down so hard, and now straight away in production, Snute switching into some Corruptors to try and deal with them, because if you mix the Corruptors and Mutalists, you're able to deal with the Phoenix very nicely, and then you can potentially come back from this. But big losses for the Zerg player already. BabyKnight only lost 225 resources this whole game. Compare that to 1500 of Snute, and it's not looking so comfy. He's transitioning into that infestation pit. And what's he going to do with that infestation pit? Well, he could go for some fungal growths, trying to shut down these Phoenix. He could also get some swarm hosts out, knowing that those Phoenix are not going to do too well against that. But scouting out the, obviously, Fleet Beacon, knowing that the Anion Post Crystals are completed. Just means the meter play, you have to be so careful. More gateways are getting chucked out, but with the Corruptors here, the Phoenix will have to be more careful. They're outraged, they don't deal much damage to the Corruptors, and the Corruptors really deal with them effectively. So this is the main thing that we're seeing now, but just with so many Phoenix out, we can see that basically BabyKnight one-shotting those Mutalists, even doing a good job against the Corruptors. So Snute being forced to pull back yet again, but with a good number of Speedlings, he's ready to run through. A hallucinated Phoenix just getting more vision here, but the third well defended as Snute tries to move in with those Zerglings. The Phoenix go in head first directly into the clump of Mutalists, take a lot of damage, but most of them do manage to survive. This is now where Snute needs to really focus on using the mobility of his army to push around everywhere. Do not allow BabyKnight to defend a static spot, because his army is far stronger in a head-up engagement. So Snute just chucking down a good number of Spine Crawlers. He's got his Hive on the way as well as Macro Hatch. Bailing speed getting researched additionally, and this is now getting into the real late game stages. It's a slugfest between these two. The Mutas and Corruptors trying to find anywhere to take advantage of this. The Speedlings running around checking for any fourth bases. The one plus side for Snute at the moment is that he knows his opponent is really on 3 bases and no more. Meanwhile, he's on 5 bases with 104 drones. That is a drone count that any Zerg player would be happy with. His income must be sky high, and indeed it is. Look at that gas income. Nearly 1200 gas a minute. Absolutely sensational. And that just means that he's going to be able to pump so much tier 3 tech. Look at the bank already there. Great Aspire, will it get started? Should do, because you really want to go for a Great Aspire or indeed the Ultralisk Cavern. Maybe even both when you've got this much money. And of course fungal growth, or not fungal growth, pathogen glands also getting researched here. So with pathogen glands you should actually be really comfortable dealing with the Mutas, get a good dealing with the Phoenix and allowing the Mutas to be more effective by just getting a big fungal growth out. But BabyKnight, he's pushing across, he's maxed out, but with so many Phoenix here, his ground army is going to be really struggling, and the one big thing that Snute's done is chuck down an entire forest of Spine Crawlers. Literally, Greenpeace would be donating so much money to Snute right now if they saw that. But yeah, all in all, we have got photon cannons being taken out. The Corruptors trying to deal with the Phoenix, but just so many Phoenix there. They melt through it, and now the Mutalists are just free pickings. They may as well suicide themselves to free up the supply, trying to knock out a couple of probes, and do manage to get a few kills there. 5 in total, so not magical, but meanwhile, we've got a lot of Protoss units pushing through, but the spine wall is just too damn high, and therefore going to be forcing BabyKnight to pull back and wait a while more. A couple of Banelings coming in, a few Zealots walked in up to this top base. Meanwhile, the 4th and center is trying to get siege, but just with no big damage units like Colossi, there's just no way this gateway force is going to get through. But the Banelings are saying, yep, we want to chase, and chase they indeed will, dealing some good damage here, cleaning out a large chunk of the ground army. Not the most cost-effective way to deal with it, but when you've got this many bases and this many drones, you can afford to just throw units at your opponent, hoping that they knock out anything that they hit. And well, the Zealots now cleaned up. This is all looking good. The 4th base only just getting started now for BabyKnight. 5 Ultralisks are on the way, in addition to the 8 that are already on the field. This is a big commitment here. The Ultras do have 2-2, 3-3 on its way down, as well as the chitinous plating, but the central rocks are coming down. This 4th base likely to be forced to counter. The Phoenix are like, hey, we cannot lift that, bro, and therefore are falling back. And this is really tough because so much of BabyKnight's supply is held up in those Phoenix, who are just sitting there looking helplessly at this many Ultras. There's not even any investors that they can lift up. Suga's just like, I'm going to hold down that Yuki and spend my bank. But as we can see, there's just nothing to do with these Ultras. The Stalker count incredibly low, only 6. 2 Voidways desperately most likely getting chrono boosted out. Indeed they are, trying to get that anti-armor damage that BabyKnight so desperately needs, but the Ultras are going to be able to kill so much before that even comes into play. And the single Immortal getting omnommed by the great big Ultra Hugs, but this just means that now things are not looking too comfortable for BabyKnight. Snute getting 7 infested behind this. The Voidways are tearing through the Ultras when they get in range, but as we can see, just so much damage being done everywhere by the Ultras, and just more on their way up. This 40 Zerglings coming down, knowing that there is no form of splash damage here, and that Speedlings are probably the best choice. So this just means that ultimately Snute is going to knock out this 3rd base. It's going to be really tough to try and save it now with only a handful of Stalkers and Voidways. There's so much damage being done by these Ultras, who are now with 3-5 upgrades. They can take a big beating, but unfortunately the focusing going down here means that the Nexus will survive temporarily, but in come the Speedling reinforcements, and the Zealots, while they are warping in, will be too late to save that Nexus. BabyKnight down to just 1 mining base here, and only 2 bases in total, not looking good. Hydras coming down behind this. The tech switches from Snute are happening constantly. The Hydras with the Infestors just mean, guess what, Voidways and Phoenix and Skytoss army, you're getting taken out. A single Colossus is here, but is it too late? Most likely it will be, and Snute still has a bank of kings at the moment. He has got a trust fund built up there, ready to spend on whatever he likes, and that is going to be a whole ton of units, and he's just going to be battling down BabyKnight, who is starved of income at the moment. Look at this income bars. Just Snute massively ahead. It's so tough. 2 Archons getting morphed in, just trying to make something of this, but in come the Infestors, just scurrying their way across, the Hydras slithering their way, and the Zerglings bounding and bouncing forward, knowing that this is going to be happy times for them most likely, and it's all going to come down to what these Hydras and the fungal growths can do. The Phoenix need to be so careful, and there goes a huge fungal growth, but a good couple of lifts, managing to pick up a huge number of those Infestors, which get focused down insanely quickly by this many Phoenix, but just with the chain fungals now and the Hydras there, they all get taken out. So this is really not looking too comfortable. The single Colossus just bravely trying to do battle with this, but Speedlings have managed to make it in, and as we can see, more Hydras coming through, more Infestors chucking down some Infested Toads, hoping to tank up a bit of damage, deal a little bit of damage, and just generally have a party. 27 Hydralists coming down behind this. The single Colossus doing some nice damage and not getting focused at all yet, but Snute, he's knocked his opponent down to 45 workers. The third base is back up though, and Snute really needs to knock that out again if he's going to stay ahead. He also could do with taking his 6th base. Definitely wouldn't be a bad move at this stage, but a counter push coming in. BabyKnight wants to try and get any of these Infestors on their escape, but as soon as he sees those Hydras, needs to be a little bit cautious because he should know that more reinforcements are on their way, including 3 Ultralisks. So this is just Snute mashing on, well, he's not mashing on keys, he's just getting all these different army compositions very quickly in succession, preventing BabyKnight from being able to build a composition that can combat them effectively, and therefore BabyKnight is going to really struggle, especially when he is stone cold broke. He has got very little minerals of gas to his name, and these Hydras are just going to keep on coming, hitting some nice damage. The Immortal gets taken out, Infested Terrans getting locked down, trying to do some good damage, get a fungal growth boom on those Voidways, and the Colossus. The Colossus is a big threat. If that goes down, then suddenly the Hydralists will be able to do whatever they please. They focus down the Colossus, and with that, I think it's going to be GG, and there we go, GG. Well played from BabyKnight, and Game 2 goes to Snute. So that was Game 2. Game 3 is going to be on its way. Make sure you like this video, and leave a cool comment and subscribe. Then flick over to my channel, and I'll see you at Game 3 in any second. I'm Madals. Catch you in a bit.